Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
As you'll know, Fighting on Film and Warfare Media partnered up to give our listeners a huge discount on high-quality Cold War posters. But now there's more. Warfare Media also offers clothing and the chance to order OP4 DPM camouflage uniforms. Support the podcast and use the code FOF20 at checkout for 20% off your order. Don't delay, visit warfaremedia.net today.
Hello and welcome back to Fighting on Film. This year is the 85th anniversary of the invasion of Denmark, which occurred on the 9th of April 1940. This year also marks the 10th anniversary of the release of this week's film, April 9th. And with a runtime of just over an hour and 30, it's only so slightly shorter than the actual conflict in Denmark on the 9th of April. This is a film that I've been wanting to cover for a long time. I've been telling Rob all about it for years, probably since we started even doing the podcast. We just chatting about war movies and
didn't
stuff.
Watch it because Matt waxed so lyrical about it. I said, when we do it on the show, I'll finally watch it.
I'm like, it's got Craig Jorgensen's in it, Rob. And Rob's like, a Craig what now?
Oh, Craig what?
I'm going to say it now. It's one of those films which you go into not expecting too much, and you set your expectations at a level, and then the film kind of surpasses those to a degree where you're like, that was actually one of the better examples of a small budget modern war movie that I've seen in the last 10 years.
And before we begin, we should say that in the UK, at least, this movie is available on the Foursome streaming app, which if you have a Amazon Stick or a smart TV, you can find, and it's got a few ads, but it's free to watch. And I think you can rent it on Amazon Prime as well if you can.
I hadn't heard of Foursome, but I tried it and it did work, so yeah. That's Foursome, spelled F-A-W.
Yes, like Foursome.
F-awesome, not...
Yeah, awesome with an F in front of it. So, moving straight into cast, which I'm on this week, and it's a full Danish-born cast, of course, and I've rounded up the main players because a lot of the cast don't really have that much to do, apart from maybe 5 people. So we have Pilu Asbæk, Second Lieutenant Sand, as Second Lieutenant Sand, I should say. He's a Danish Film Academy Award winner, perhaps best known to Western audiences for his role in Game of Thrones, where he played Euron Greyjoy, or Greyjoy, in Season 6. I never saw Game of Thrones, but apparently that's what he's in. He also played the lead in a 2015 Danish war film, A War, which was also directed by April 9's writer Tobias Lindholm. And he also appears in 2018's Overlord, which is that D-Day zombie film.
Oh yes, I do. Yeah. I do remember that one. He's also in another Danish war movie. He plays a civilian. He's trying to protect his family. I remember the trailer, but I can't remember the name.
Right.
But if there's a big Danish project, he's normally in there somewhere.
He's your man. And then coming up as well, second to that is Lars Mikkelsen, who's Lieutenant Colonel Hintz. He's an Emmy Award winner. Known for his roles in The Killing, Sherlock, House of Cards, The Witcher on Netflix, and voicing and playing Grand Admiral Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka. So these are two quite well-known big actors out of Denmark, these two. And I think
he's Mads Mikkelsen's brother, isn't he?
That's it, I think he is. Yeah. Then we have
those
Jannik.
Mikkelsen boys, they know how to do it, don't they?
Oh, yeah. No Mikkel taken here. Then we have Jannik Lorentzen, sorry if I'm butchering some of these Danish names this week, as Private Graham. He's a chap with the glasses. And when I was doing cast, this is just an aside, when I was doing cast, I thought all their first names were Menig, because Menig means private in Danish. And I was like, no, hang on. This has to be not right. So
you could have just done all their numbers, their service numbers, couldn't you?
That's true. Yeah.
Because that's how he addresses them. It's like 217, 223, 233, and all this.
That would be too much.
Right.
But no, Menig means private, so that's a nice little thing to know. Anyway, Lorentzen has been in many Danish works again, such as The Art of Crying in 2006 and the 2016 drama Hundlev. And then we have Gustav Dacre Gies, I'm going to go with that, as Private Anderson. He's the Madsen machine gunner. He's been in a Danish crime thriller, The Quiet Ones, 2 Danish war films called Into Darkness and its sequel Out of Darkness in 2022 and 2020 that documents the wartime struggles and life of the Skov family. So it's a little bit it's like pre 1940,
Right.
then April 9th. Then
Right.
the sequel, Out of the Darkness, is all about the occupation and what happens afterwards. So maybe
That
ones to
sounds,
revisit.
yeah, it sounds interesting.
Certainly, you don't usually get sequel war films like that, you know.
No, there was that one in the 80s, wasn't there? The British one.
Then we have Joachim Feldstrup as Sergeant Bundegard, who I think is the NCO of the Mounted Troops. Or it could be Simon Sears as Captain Holm, but they look incredibly similar in the movie.
Right. Yeah, the sergeant commands the motorcycle troops.
That's right. Then
I literally watched it 10 minutes ago, so I'm fairly fresh
gosh.
on this. But yes, I think so. Yeah.
yeah. They look really similar in their uniforms. Anyway, so Joachim himself has been in a 2019 short film Eric's War about life in occupied Denmark, Ride Upon the Storm, which is a 2017 religious drama. Then Simon Sears, aforementioned, as Captain Holm. He's in the Netflix fantasy drama Shadow and Bone, and he also appeared with Joachim in Ride Upon the Storm. And then finally, we have Elliot Corset Hove as a Danish American actor who played Pat Larson in the 2018 crime drama Journal 64 and the Danish crime series The Bridge in 2018.
Oh,
But
yeah.
to be fair, apart from Sand, Hintz, Graham and Anderson, and a little bit of Bundegard,
A little bit of, yeah, Justison as well. It has a few
yeah,
lines, doesn't
and
he?
the sort of NCO, the gruff NCO.
The
Apart
beginning.
from that, there ain't that many dudes. You know, there aren't that many. There's a lot of words, there's a lot of dialogue, but it's only really said by maybe 4 people.
It's tight, though. It's tight.
It's a very tight cast and a very good one, and they all have. I think they all do an exemplary job with what they've got to do. Anyway, Matt, into production this week.
Yeah, so the film, as I mentioned, was released on the 12th of March 2015. It was directed by Ronnie Ezra, who's worked on numerous TV and film projects out of Denmark. And this is really his only military-based production so far. As Rob already mentioned, Tobias Lindholm was the writer on this project, but he's also a writer-director in his own right, and he's directed the 2012 film A Hijacking, which is about a Danish ship which is hijacked by Somalian pirates. And then, of course, the very well-regarded A Krieg, or A War, which also was released in 2015. He both wrote and directed that. And that's a look at Danish soldiers in Afghanistan, what happens when they come home, and that kind of thing. It's very interesting. I watched it a couple of years ago.
Was that on Netflix a little bit?
It was for a little while, I believe, yeah. Again, I think Asbjørn is in that as well, is the lead.
He is.
As you said, and he's very good in that. And it's a really interesting film. I don't like it as quite as much as I like April 9, but it still, stands up really well. So the film from Lindholm, from what I've read about Lindholm's process, is he wrote the film based around a number of discussions and interviews that he had with veterans and civilians that, witnessed the goings-on of that morning on April 9th, 1940. The film has a bit of an epilogue where it interviews, I think, almost half a dozen chaps pop up to say just a couple of things. I imagine those interviews, the longer form, must be absolutely fascinating viewing. But,
Yeah.
there's a bit of a narrative that's created through what they say individually, and you can kind of get a gist of how they felt about it collectively.
Some of the frankest sounding veterans I've heard, if I'm honest, they sound very. They talk in a very different way to veterans that I've come across. I found it quite stark in a way.
Very different experience for most
course.
veterans, because they experienced 2-3 hours of war. Then they were, prisoners for a day or two, and then they were occupied. Yeah, and it's a very different experience.
Germans didn't fully take away the armed forces of Denmark.
No, apparently not. No.
Yeah.
No. Carrying on with production, the score was provided by Jonas Struck, who's a prolific composer for Danish and international TV and film productions. Cinematography was provided by Philip Kress, Again, lots of Danish and international TV work, including the recent Paris Has Fallen TV series, which is, I believe, on Netflix or one of the big streamers. This week, production design, I'm going to mention because I came across it, and there isn't a great deal about the film online, both in English or Danish, in fact. But Thomas Grieve provided the production design for the film. He also worked on 2015's A War as well. And one of the things I'll talk about later on as well is that Grieve went into a lot of detail with the production design. You know, he tried to recreate photographs from the actual, morning, let's say, the actual day that the event happened. There's a couple of really famous photographs of the motorcycle troops and the blockades. And he staged those, in the original position, shot on location, laid out as such, and it's really nice production design. The film had a budget of just 22 million Danish krone, which that sounds like a lot of krone, but in fact it's just $3 million. So that's
wow,
2.9 million pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a box office figure for it, but about 250,000 tickets were bought in Denmark. So, that's not, it's not to be sniffed at. That's a considerable number. I think one of the most
made its money back for streaming, surely.
Yeah, it's been on most of all the big streamers over the years, hasn't it? I think in Danish terms, like anything over 500,000 is a big movie over there. It's a small country. The production was assisted by the War Museum, which is interestingly named Between the Borders of Schleswig, which is located in the Belrup-Bov area on the border with Germany.
Oh wow!
And it's a museum that tells the history of the entire history of the border area. So there's a lot of goings on there. And they lent 2 of the old Nimbus motorcycles and sidecars, which we see in the film, which I think Rob's going to talk about later on as well.
Briefly, yeah.
And then the production also gathered a lot of original kit. So they gathered 120 of those really recognizable Danish steel helmets, 100 gas mask carriers, 50 pairs of wool trousers, 25 rifles, 32 cartridge belts, and a couple of khaki-coloured officers' coats. Originals.
Nice. The helmet you're alluding to there is the M1923 helmet, and the uniform is the
don't spoil the alley tally for everyone already.
I'm not, but no, yeah, it's the M1923. Fascinating, to have all that kit to sort of lend out to the movie. It's fantastic. It really
it's so unique to the area, to the period.
Very. Yeah,
it's not the sort of thing that you could go to a costumers and go, I need,
Can
I need
you run
100 M1923 helmets, please, thank you.
Yeah,
you can't do it.
Quite niche, very niche indeed. Anyway, that brings us on to this week's retro review. It comes from the Danish film website Film DK by Tobias Lindhurler, and he gave the movie 2 stars. And I'll read you a little bit of the truncated review here. Matt has just looked shocked. Matt's just looked bewildered there on the chat.
Tobias is coming for my boys. What's going on?
Tobias, clutch your pearls, Matthew. You might not like this.
My God.
He says, April 9 cannot be called a boring film, but it is appropriate to call it both uninspired and predictable. Add to this at best a pathetic attempt to authenticate the South Jutland touch with resonating dialects. In other words, it quickly develops into a film experience without air under its wings and caught in a vicious spiral of flat repetitions and battle scenes without real nerve. Not exactly a helpless film, but a very uninspired and superficial introduction to the primitive resistance that the Danes were allowed to offer the Germans. As a history lesson, the film is certainly well suited, completely in line with other heroic films about the occupation period that Danish film has spewed out so far. Matt took a breath. Matt took a deep breath and a sigh there. In the way to quote Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos, it feels like I've been stabbed in the heart.
I mean, I obviously cannot comment on Danish dialects, like local or otherwise. That's certainly nothing
that was such a weird thing to pick up on.
I mean, no, I can understand where they're coming from, Matt, because I mean, I'm sure there are dialectal differences and such, but I can certainly comment on the battle sequences and the actual filmmaking at hand, and I thought it was pretty good. You know?
Yeah, I do disagree with that review. However, I'm not a Dane, so I can't
No,
speak for that. Film is subjective. We must remember this
it
on the
is. It
show.
is a subjective medium.
But anyway, what did you guys think? And it's time for the one word review. So we have Brian Williams who goes helmets. AD Bond says tense. Tony Cowards goes psychopathic. Chris Hughes says excellent. Beto Lopez goes good. J.R. Tracy Nimbus. Stephen Wensley pragmatic. Dr. Grant Howard says helmets. And my one word review this week was bikes.
Mine was Madsen.
Madsen, yeah. A lot of excitement on the old FOF socials this week for this one. I feel like this is one of the movies. If
They
you
know where it's at, Rob. They know where it's at. They know where their bread's buttered. They know a good film when they see it.
But I also feel, saying that, I also feel this is a kind of movie. If you know, you know. I think
Totally.
And that brings us on to this week's Ali Tally.
It's time for Ali Tally on Fighting on Film.
Can I talk about bike-mounted infantry, please?
You may.
Thank you. So this is, for me, this is the film's real unique angle. This is why I think this movie is worth watching, because it's from the perspective of bicycle-mounted infantry, which is not an uncommon thing to see with armies of the early 1900s.
No,
Both the
not
British
at all.
and French armies have been experimented with bike-mounted troops since the late 1800s. The first use of bicycles in combat was in the Boer War.
Belgians loved them.
Belgians love them. French, I think the Germans used them as well. Very ubiquitous, the bike, because cycling was huge in the Victorian era.
Oh yeah, it freed people, didn't it? It was huge. Yeah. A horse you don't need to feed. Marvelous.
No, yeah, of course. Yeah. You don't even have to give it water. Yeah. The British raised the 1st and 2nd Cyclist Divisions during the Great War. But by April 1940, the Danish army had one bicycle mounted infantry regiment, which is the 6th Bicycle Mounted Infantry Regiment, which consisted of 2 788-man strong battalions, which consisted of 3 bike-mounted and 1 bike-mounted infantry company, along with a heavy weapons company. The 6 were part of the Jutland Division, however the Zealand Division had their own bike-mounted infantry. And I just think the movie does a really great job of showing you the strengths and weaknesses of bike-mounted troops. Because they can get around brilliantly, but where they fall down is they're lightly armed, and they're on bikes, which also have their own issues. You know, getting around rough terrain and things. It's not as easy if you're not on an open road.
Talk more about that in a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, massively. But I think the film also, you talked about it in the production notes, but it does an amazing job of showing you all that kit. So you've got the Danish infantrymen of 1940, because you must remember, listeners, that the Danes didn't fight in the First World War. They were they were onlookers. They were neutral. So their army hasn't really developed much past.
Hadn't fought a war since 1864.
Exactly.
When they were defeated by the Prussians.
Yeah, so we're looking at an army that has no real tank doctrine or tanks at all. They buy 2 Carden Lloyd patrol tanks in the mid-30s, and they're never used in combat. So they don't have anything that can take on armour, essentially. They have both as anti-tank guns. They have 20mm Madsen autocannons, which you see in the movie.
Very actually, to be fair to them, on the autocannons, cutting edge for the time.
Oh, very. Yes.
If they'd employed those in different ways and had more of them, they would have, had a much better
maybe
chance.
Doctrinally, they just don't have the experience. And the movie,
I think doctrine's the main thing here. I agree.
The movie shows you that, though. We'll talk about it later. But
does
as
a really
I say,
good job of it.
With the kit and equipment, you've got that 1923 helmet, that big kind of wide-brimmed one. The khaki service uniform with the high collar, that's a very, very pre-World War I thing, high collars. We kind of come away from that in the 30s, the sort of more relaxed battle dress that the British were wearing, different styles at least. You've got your matching greatcoat, your M1938 gas mask canister with your M1923 belt and ammo pouch. And this is quite basic webbing. We're not doing what the British were doing, where we have a 37 pattern webbing that is designed with the platoon in mind. You're carrying Bren gun magazines. You're also carrying lots of other different equipment. This is a very kind of, I would say, typical 20s army. It hasn't really developed on from that. but I think the movie just feels so authentic for these little touches, and you can see even in the movie, you see the age of some of this stuff. Webbing
Yeah, you can see the
belts.
cracks, can't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really lovely, so good. The motorbike troops with their sidecars, which are Nimbus motorbikes, they have the waterproof motorcyclist overalls, which are a little bit
Nice.
like a British pixie suit.
Yeah, I thought that too. Yeah.
So yeah, there's my little history on that there, because I did a hell of a lot of deep dive into the Danish army.
It's
for
it's
you
one of
all.
those films that makes you really interested in
It really does.
the actual history behind it and what the rest of the Danish army was up to and what they were equipped with. Well, I suppose we better talk about the real stars of the film: Krag, Jorgensen, and Madsen. What great guys they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
incredible.
this film is perhaps one of the very few films which portrays the Krag Jorgensen rifle in a prolonged way. Krag Jorgensen, of course, was a Norwegian design that was developed in the late 1880s, came in the 1890s. The US adopted it along with Norway and Denmark, obviously. So it wasn't a hugely widely adopted rifle, but it's quite a unique one in that it has an interesting sort of side loading gate, which allows you to open this little gate at the side. Some of them hinge forward, some of them hinge kind of like laterally. And that allows you to top off the magazine without actually opening the bolt, which is a feature that everyone thought they wanted or needed. But does it really matter? Yeah. You're still opening the action.
I mean, under stressful battlefield conditions, it looked a
Oh,
little bit
the film
finicky.
does a very good job of showing the nuances of using a Krag Jorgensen rifle. The chap's single loading, because there's no stripper clip guide on the Danish Krags. So the rifles in the film,
another thing that most Western armies had cracked by 1939 was the stripper clip fed bolt action rifle.
Yes, it's kind of ubiquitous by this point. I think the British Army had kind of nailed this by 1904 or something.
I even think like Luxembourg, Belgium, and Norway had mastered the stripper clip at this point.
Yeah. So the rifles seen in the film are the Krag Jorgensen 1889-24 artillery and infantry carbines. So there's two different carbines in the film. They're bicycle troops, so they're using the carbines, not the longer rifles. The longer rifles have a very long barrel length. And then, as I also mentioned, we have the Madsen, and the Madsen is for its period a revolutionary weapon. It's arguably I believe it's the world's first light machine gun, practically speaking.
Well, like box fed
light machine gun, yeah. In the film, it's set up on like a sustained fire tripod, and they treat it almost like it's an autocannon itself. They're firing on some of the German armored fighting vehicles that are coming on the armored cars, like it's going to have any impact.
It's like pre-1900 like pre-1914 ways of deploying a light machine gun. Pre-1915, it's like, this is an artillery piece because it has a big stand.
Oh yeah,
let's treat it like that. I love it.
Second Lieutenant Sands deploys his Madsen. It's like Napoleon with his cannon at Waterloo.
It really is. It's cute. It's so cute, but it makes so much sense because Danes have never fought war. They
have no context for
this. Me and Matt talked about this week quite heavily, where we were saying we think the reason that the Wehrmacht do so well is because they're fighting armies that just haven't fought a force that just comes at you with combined arms, and we were willing the Danes just put up a bit more resistance. If you can crack those tanks, they've got nothing to back it up. Like their supply trains are miles behind them. But this is another thing that the movie does amazingly well, is show you the kind of the fearful element of that blitzkrieg, of that Wehrmacht push, into the Scandinavia, down through Poland and France. It's this whole fear factor of, well, what happens when the armored cars turn up? What happens when the half tracks turn up? It's like, oh my god, it has this real kind of gritty, grounded feel to it. Where you're just as scared as those Danish bicycle troops.
The film does a great job of building tension. We'll talk about that when we come to our favourite scenes. I know, because I know what our favourite scenes are.
Do you?
Yeah, so I'm getting it. The Madsen is an M1924, so it's chambered in the Danish 8x58 rimmed cartridge, which is the standard issue Danish cartridge, which the Krags are also chambered in. As I mentioned, that we see it deployed on a tripod. We see some of the dismounted motorcycle troops set it up on a bipod a little bit later on.
One even has a spotting scope, which is incredible.
I know. Well, this is the thing with the Madsen, because it was an Edwardian 10th of the century machine gun, which was ahead of its time when it was invented, and it was around for a long time. It's used all over the world, They still turn up today in places like Brazil. A couple of them have turned up maybe in Ukraine, not used, but like I think it was someone's private collection. It was taken.
I think everyone used them in the First World War, didn't they? They're a bit like the Lewis in that regard.
Exactly. The Germans used them. We used them. The Belgians used them. The French used them. I think everyone did. I agree.
Yeah.
But as I said, because they are just one of these really solid, turn of the century designs. They turn up everywhere. So it's not surprising the Danes selected them because obviously Danish weapon.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really interesting about the Madsen in the film is the all the little accoutrements that you see, like the straps that attach it to the bike. They pull like a couple of panniers off with like big leather boxes full of magazines, like 25 or 30 round box magazines.
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah. The attention to detail with these bike troops is just... There are other movies with 20 times the budget of this that didn't do as good of a job as this movie. Fury, there's a few. Dunkirk, there's a few that just... The care that this movie's given to its
a lot of attention to detail.
It's just
they didn't need to put M1938 Madsen automatic cannons on sidecars into the film, but they did.
But I'm so pleased they did. And I'm so pleased they did.
Cutting edge for the period. Wonderful to see them portrayed. Because that would have had a brilliant impact on almost all armored vehicles the Germans sent into Denmark in 1940.
If the Danes had a Cardinaloid carrier with a Madsen 20mm cannon in it, the war might have been over in 40. Just you heard it here first.
Big stretch, but yeah.
Big stretch, yeah. But those autocannons cannons are really interesting. So it's probably one of the heavier weapons they have. As I say, I mentioned this both as anti-tank gun that does see action as well. But the Madsen 20mm cannon itself, according to reports on the day, is said to have destroyed or damaged at least 11 armoured cars and at least 2 Panzer Mark 1s. However, casualty figures and damage figures for AFVs knocked out by the Danes are heavily disputed because apparently one of the Danish arms manufacturers maybe inflated the figures at some point after post-war or during the war. Very disputed to what the actual figures are.
Interesting.
Little bit of a side there.
Well, we've waxed lyrical on the Danish arms and equipment. The German arms and equipment in the film are equally good. Obviously, we don't see that as much, but K98Ks, MP40s. I would argue we probably should have had MP38s at this point because the MP40s just coming in.
Stickler is a submachine gun stickler.
I'm not going to hold them to it. MG34s, and then there's a great little sequence at the beginning of the film where the first skirmish occurs, and you get this great sequence where an albeit anachronistic MG42 is dueling with a Madsen light machine gun.
Oh yes,
it's just good. It's just good.
Yeah, I love those boxy. I forget this SKDF, whatever they are number.
SDKF Z 221 and 222s, isn't it?
Yeah, I love those boxy German armoured cars.
There's a mocked up Panzer 1 in there as well.
Good, isn't it? It's great to see a Panzer 1.
It's really, really great to see depictions of early war German armour. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, very rare. Yeah, exactly.
It is one of those things that you don't see because there's not that many early war movies. We'll come back to this at the very end of the show, but I would love to see a Battle of France movie that isn't Dunkirk related. Give me Fury in a Matilda one.
Oh, now you're talking. Now you're talking. Oh my word! Give me an Arras movie for God's sake.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, I think that brings us on to favourite scenes. I have titled my favourite scene, The Mighty Madsen.
Go for it.
Hello, I'm Al Murray, and you're listening to Fighting on Film, the world's #1 war film podcast.
So it is that scene, and we talked about it a little bit in the alley tally, but it's when the platoon first meet contact from the Germans advancing in, and they set up the Madsen on the tripod. You know, I've said Matt has explained it already. It's on its like big tripod. They're setting it up. They've got a little elevated area. The rest of the platoon take up some horrendous positions
Awful.
to the left of them.
That tree, that log is not cover.
No, it's
It's
not.
concealment at best, guys.
That's going to be both said at the same time. But this is where the movie, everything about this movie feels real, because you've got an officer class who've never fought a war. You've got a chiefs of staff that's never fought a war, and you've probably got doctrine that is probably heavily outdated by this time.
If anything, it's based on what they've observed.
Yeah, of course.
Not experienced.
No, and I'm not putting the Danes down at all, because I think they fought bravely for the amount of time they did. From what I've read.
Well, let's face it, they were a small, relatively poor nation with a very small standing army that was under-equipped, underfunded.
Essentially a border control army, you could argue, skirmishing army. Anyway.
Against a highly mechanised enemy that's prepared and motivated.
With incredible PR. You know, let's not forget, the Wehrmacht have some cracking PR in that time of the war. Blitzkrieg, oh no! Like, that's another episode entirely.
You need to go on History Rage.
Basically, the failure of Arras
and
just always makes me upset.
Blitzkrieg is overrated.
It is. It's combined arms warfare. They were doing it in the First World War. The Germans just have nice PR. Don't get me started on that. Anyway, so get back to my favourite scene. They've set up the MG. The amount of faith in this movie that they put into that Madsen, I haven't seen since we covered Bataan with their with their M1919 water cooled. Absolutely fantastic. And they're put upon. The Madsen starts firing. All the chaps start firing. They quickly realise that their MG is not going to go through steel plate shock horror. But
why didn't they open fire on the motorcyclists that were leading the column?
We thought that. Well, they kind of did, but then he was told to like concentrate his fire on the armoured cars, obviously, because
of course,
you know, it makes sense.
The Madsen can do anything.
Oh, the Madsen is a mighty Madsen; it can do anything. But there's a quick reload with the number 2 gunner who slaps another box mag in, and it is one of the smoothest on-screen reloads I think I've ever seen on anything.
Props to that actor. He must have practiced and practiced.
Really good. And this is the whole thing. I think it's why this scene works, because you have an MG team who aren't just 2 blokes. You have like a 4-man team, which, from what I remember about the Vickers gun and running a Lewis and things like that, it's quite a big team needed for these weapons, especially if you're running them on a doctrinal level, which probably is a little bit outdated, as I mentioned before. So you're not maybe not running it as smoothly as you possibly could, but it makes so much sense in how they are sort of utilised, and I just love it. But the scene itself, it's kinetic, it's frantic. You feel how scary it is to have this armoured mass coming at you, and they're not stopping, and you know the platoon themselves are fractured. They're not mutually supporting. They're getting, guys are getting hit. They don't know what to do, and it's a great on-screen show of how a lightly armed force just is really outmatched really quickly, and then they pull back, and then that's where the movie really starts going. And from that point, this first set piece, the movie doesn't let up. It doesn't stop, and that's another one of this movie's great strengths is once you're in. Because you have such a small amount of time to cover, because the actual engagement was so small, you're basically with it in movie timescale terms. You're in it from beginning to end. It's such a great, it's really powerful, really great opening scene, which, it's not over the top. It just does enough to capture a feel of something. And I think that's what this movie does really well. It has a feel to it. But anyway, your favourite scene, my friend?
Well, just to add on to that one, the moment that one of the assistant gunners gets hit and the blood splatter on the camera, you aren't expecting.
Oh yeah, it's that gritty groundedness. I think
it's very visceral. I like the scene that immediately follows. This isn't my favorite, but I like the scene that immediately follows that, where they withdraw and they regroup at a farmhouse, and it's that scene where they're all coming down from the chaos and the adrenaline of the skirmish, and the lieutenant's discussing with a civilian lady. She offers to hide them in the barn in the hayloft, and they talk about, well, she says that, I've lived in this area all my life and it used to be German. Nationality means little to me. And he's like, well, it means everything to me. I'm not going to protect my men from fighting. They wouldn't want me to do that either. So there's a nice little bit of dialogue there that kind of iterates why they're fighting, and it just kind of grounds the film a little bit. Because it's very sparse on its context building and its characterization building at the very beginning of the film. There is a little bit of it. We were introduced to a couple of the soldiers. We're introduced to the two officers. We're kind of shown the ramping tension and the escalation that they're in the headquarters waiting for the call. They're waiting for the call to disperse on the border. There's a little bit where there's a radio message from a border post that you can hear engines revving and approaching in the distance. And there's little intel reports coming in. It's very well done. It isn't overdone. It isn't underdone either. There's a very good balance to it. My favourite scene is perhaps one of the greatest pieces of tense war cinema I've ever seen. It's the puncture repair in the woods.
I knew it. I knew it's what you were going to choose. I just knew it.
There's a bit where they're cross country.
It is really well
done. They're running their
good.
bikes through the woodland. It's like the worst possible thing for bicycle troops, going through woodland.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Panzers in the Ardennes in 1940.
Sorry, that's fantastic.
But they're going to cut through and get to the town ahead of.
They'll never cut through the Ardennes with their bikes. They'll never go through that woods with the bikes.
Did.
Oh my god, they're doing it!
And they overcame.
They adapted. They overcome.
They adapted. Thank God they didn't run into anyone near Boston.
No.
What was my point I was making? Oh yeah, but
tense war cinema changing a tire.
To be fair, I love the fact that the film does spend 5 minutes showing us an infield tire puncture repair. It's just fab.
Get it in a tube out. Everyone's done it in their life at some point, surely.
I'm surprised they didn't get a canteen out and start putting it under the water to find the bubbles.
That would have been amazing if that
incredible.
Had done that.
The entire second act of the film is this
fucking
tense.
Halford shit. Just work. Come on.
But that scene does illustrate the tensions that are bubbling within the section. They're frustrated, they're frightened, and it is a good little characterization section of the movie. It does take a little break from being on the move, being in combat.
To go on guard as well.
Like, yes, they have security out.
When you ever see that film?
Amazing.
Like, come on.
This is one of the things that the film does really well, and it takes pains to illustrate doctrine and authentic
rank structure as well.
Rank structure, authentic. Yeah. There's a bit where someone says, "Can I ask a question?" And he's like, "No."
No,
I love that. I loved that. He's like, "Permission to ask a question?" No. It was just perfect. I was like, "That's brilliant." You never see that.
The sergeant, like in the barn, being a bit rattled, and then he gets himself together and he starts giving out orders again. It's like it's a little bit cliche, but it's done well.
There's a couple of tropes in here, and I'm going to run through them in a minute, but there are tropes.
I still haven't made you a jingle.
It's fine. But my real favourite scene is the final battle. It's
great.
I think it's a masterclass in set pieces for a small budget film production. If you want to see something that can be kinetic, frantic, really well shot, really well choreographed, feels intense, but is just half a dozen dudes in a couple of alleyways. This is a film that's laser focused on what it wants to do, I think, and that shows all the way through. But that final sequence is just phenomenal. They're overwhelmed. They've got limited ammunition. There's no support. They're having effect. They're shooting Germans. There's Germans being shot. There's bits of masonry flying around, which you wouldn't expect from a low budget film. They do a bit of that.
And Sand telling his men where to go, what to do. Now, come on,
that stands out
now.
throughout the whole thing. He's micromanaging a section.
He's being an officer, which you rarely see in movies.
It is. It's really interesting because it's a really interesting illustration of that micromanagement and that doctrine of moving troops and supporting fire and that kind of thing. It's really, really lovely to see an illustration of that in a well shot film. It's quite something. But yeah, there's little sections where crags are being reloaded. There's a point at the end of the film where Sand draws his Bergman Bayard M1910-21, and you're like, oh my
Made
god,
famous by the Mandalorian, folks, in Star Wars.
It is the same family of developments. So the Bergman Bayard has like a bigger box magazine at the front, and it's in 9mm. That's the only thing. But no, you are right. That is a Bergman as well. But that's an earlier Bergman. This is a slightly later evolution. Yeah, so he draws that, and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna start blatting with the Bergman, but he doesn't. And it's like, the only way that this film could have been better is if he rounded a corner, fired off a few rounds, and then gone, all right, fine.
Yeah, just at least
it's a bit futile now.
Yeah,
just a little plat.
A long time listeners to the show, Matt loves an obscure service pistol or obscure service weapon. It's just something that he adores. But no, that ending battle. It's you feel the futileness of it because it's you can keep shooting as long as you've got ammo, but these guys have got armored cars. They've got the upper hand. You know, there is no reserve.
20 rounds per man. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's the futility of it.
But it's done so well. It's so tightly shot. You feel the pendingness of the streets. There's something about it. The sort of mutually supporting running back, and it's something you rarely see in movies. Is an actual city fight done in a way that it's quite.
This is it.
Feels quite real.
Urban combat depicted for this period of the war is really, really quite unique. And
yes, you're right.
It got me really excited at the beginning of Dunkirk when, there's a little bit of him running through a barricade.
Such a little tease, isn't it?
And I was like, oh, we're going to get a little bit of, defense on the outside. No. Anyway, that's my shitting on Dunkirk for the week done.
We've both done it this week.
I love that end sequence. I think it's really well done. And that was mostly filmed in the actual, I believe... It was a lot of that end act is filmed near Halesloo, which is the town they're sent to defend. In the film. So the film was I didn't mention this in production, but the film was partially filmed in Budapest in Hungary, and then the rest of it was filmed.
Oh, someone's getting tax breaks there. That's a classic.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that maybe perhaps some of the armoured scenes with the armoured cars. I don't know whether there's armoured cars out that way.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I couldn't find a definitive indication of which parts of the film were filmed there. But I know that those scenes, at the end of the film where they're in Halesloo, are filmed on location, because what they did was, as I mentioned earlier, Thomas Grieve recreated some of the photographs. So the little bit where there's a couple of chaps lying down behind a Madsen 20mm, and there's like a shop in the distance, and there's like civilians dotted around them looking on. I'll post it on socials when this episode goes live this week. But if you look at the actual photograph that's taken from, they've blocked it person for person, position. It's beautiful. It's they've done that for a few different shots. So some of the other bits where that barricade where the Panzer I crashes through. Great scene again. Yeah. But yeah, the attention to detail on that is another
really
one of those things that really makes this a great film.
And I think we're sliding in to final thoughts. And I'll to start my final thoughts, I wanted to say when you talked about those pictures being replicated, this is one of those movies you feel the love, the attention to detail, the want to tell a good story, but also represent a part of your nation's history as well as you can with the budget that you have.
Yeah.
This movie has something, but I'll kick off by saying this is possibly one of the best paced films we have ever covered on the show ever.
Right, it's like a tight 1 hour 33 minute.
A 90-minute war movie with no chaff. All wheat, no subplot. There's no love romantic plot. There's no civilian subplot. There's nothing. It's just this. There's no I've got to get home to my wife. There's no none of that cliche rubbish that you've seen a billion times before.
There's a couple of little tropey bits. There's a bit where at the beginning of the film, there's a chow hound soldier who's like, "Are you going to eat your bread?" and I'm going to eat my bread.
Yeah.
There's a soldier that's a bad shot. Another great trope. There's the letter writing scene where Sandy's writing a letter and then he then takes his Bergman out of his drawer and starts loading the magazines. That's great. Yeah. And then
I would say they err on the side of pastiche.
They do. I think they're
to the genre, perhaps.
They're giving nods, I think. The very minute that Justison starts talking about wanting to be a grocer after the war, you know he dead. And he is at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, there's some tasty tropes in there.
But they're not battered over the head. And I think it's the ending, that futile ending of, oh, you didn't know, why did you keep fighting? You didn't know the war had ended?
That is true. That did happen.
Yeah. And then he just looks so crestfallen where he's like, oh, we couldn't possibly have capitulated, but we did.
My grocer Justison could have survived the war.
Yeah, exactly. Me and Matt have talked about it, and I'm stealing something you said to me the other day, but this is how war films can tell a complex story on a small scale. Mm-hmm. It's almost a masterclass in how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's the 90-minute runtime, which is perfect for anyone. If you're new to foreign war films or just foreign film in general, this is a great one to wet your teeth on because 90 minutes, that's the perfect time for a movie. No movies need to be 3 hours long. I'm a big advocate of that. You know, I'm looking at you, Irishman. Christ.
And next week we're covering the director's cut of Napoleon, the 4-hour version.
Christ, we're not. We're just not, Matthew. It's classic, get to know the troops, mid-set piece, end-set piece that you've seen done before, but this is how to execute it effectively, in my opinion.
I agree. It's formulaic, but it doesn't feel formulaic. The mise-en-scène, the production design, the attention to detail lift what could be a small-budget, unnoticeable, unexciting foreign movie about an obscure historical event to something that really tells a story that gives it, gives it a human element, gives it a bit of jeopardy, creates real tension, and it elevates a very small production into something that I think is really quite notable.
And it doesn't fall into jingoism as well.
No, it doesn't, and it has moments where it attempts to tell a story of why they're fighting and those elements. But again, it's a very straightforward picture. It's just looking to retell some of the historical events around an unfortunate 3 hours in Danish history. And I think it's in terms of filmmaking, it's very, very well done, tight, brilliantly paced, as Rob said. Really authentic feeling production values, and as I've said a number of times throughout the episode, that attention to detail is something that really elevates this film. And also, really good alley tally. Really good alley in this film. Really cool kit. It's obscure, and I am a sucker, as everyone knows that listens to the show, a sucker for obscure weapons and kit. And this film delivers a Nimbus sidecar load of obscure kit and cool stuff.
It really does.
In a very well produced, well made package of a film.
I think you mentioned this earlier. It made me want more from the early phase of the Second World War, though.
We've got The King's Choice, which is a decent Norwegian look at that. We have Narvik, which is another really good.
I was going to say, it really feels like we've had this in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I think so. And I would love to see, we've had a lot of it from Scandinavian production companies and out of their kind of their cinema, but we haven't had a lot of it out of the UK, out of France.
Well, we had
Belgium.
that World in Flames series.
Yeah, but it's not. Which
wasn't great.
Would I watch three episodes of that, or would I watch April 9 again? Probably I'd watch April 9 again. Let's be honest.
Matt, if anyone doesn't know, Matt bought shares in this movie when it came out, and he's trying to make them pay. I'm joking.
And now it's free on some app. Number 1 in the Kickstarter. Madsen's, I'm in.
Movies like this don't come along on the show very often, where you're just quietly blown away by it. Yeah, and I think this is what it did. This is what it did, and I do think. And it's funny
agree
now.
with you. To get back to that, I agree. It is. We say I've said it, dozens of times on the show. We both have. When a film makes you interested in the actual history it's trying to portray, and it makes you want to go back, look it up, read more about it, then it's Had an
I
effect.
read a whole book on the Danes, the Luxembourg armies, the Dutch armies, and the Belgian armies after this. I got an Osprey book on it online, bought it, and read it. So it's been fascinating to learn about all these tiny little forces. So it's done its job, and that is the power of this genre, and one of this genre alone is that that's its job. It's to make you go back and remember history. And what a little triumph this movie's on.
Best
is
70,000 kroner I ever spent.
Exactly, yeah. And this is the triumph, another triumph for the genre, really. Foreign movies as well, Danish cinema. And if you have an extra 90 minutes spare and you have the Foursome app or Apple or Amazon Prime, just give it a watch because it's fantastic. We don't normally say on the show you need to go out and watch this, but I think if you're a long-term listener or a new listener, and you've not seen many foreign war films, and you may be dipping your toes into the review to see how, would I like this? Is it for me? Give it a go. Don't be afraid of subtitles. Don't be afraid of them.
Yeah. Let the Craigs and the Madsons carry you through. One of my favourite war movies. You've got to go and see it. You've got to go and seek it out. I just really highly recommend it.
Matt's going to get it back in cinemas.
I haven't got shares in it. I swear to God,
you're trying to get it back in cinemas, Matt. Get out there and see it.
Oh, I'd love to see this on a big screen. A big screen, Rob. That'd be a treat.
Come on, let's do it.
I could finally buy shares in this film.
You could. And I think it's ironic that we're praising a movie so highly, and another movie that we love on the show also has 9 in the title. 9 Men and April 9.
We must now seek out all films with 9 in the title and see if the philosophy holds true.
So that was April 9. As I mentioned, it's on the Foursome app in the UK. International listeners, find it on Prime.
Or elsewhere, wherever it's available. Search engines are your friend on that one.
Matt's an advocate for big search engines this week as well. Circle.
I've
We've
got
done
that
a
Ask
circle,
Jeeves
Matt.
money coming in next week, Rob. Don't you worry about it.
When were you getting that Ask Jeeves, buddy? 1999.
Hang on, I need to feed my Tamagotchi.
They're coming back, actually, Tamagotchis. Have you
No
seen?
way.
Yeah.
Oh, Gen Z is fucking insatiable, aren't they?
I know, right?
God.
They want to remember a time when there wasn't a financial crash on the way. That's what they're trying to do.
Oh, wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all?
I know, right? Anyway, let's ignore the socio-political spectrum and get on to this week's large question, which was Matt's choice again. He's hit us with two on the bounce, and he asked, "What obscure World War II action or moment would you want to be made into a movie? The more obscure, the better." Paul Burns, who goes, "The Bruneval Raid." Yes, please.
It's been done, but not well.
Well, no, it's been done by the SSVC. That's the only thing I can remember who did it.
It's been done by the SSVC. It was done ever so slightly by Red Beret.
Oh, the Red Beret. Tony Cowards goes, Operation Ironclad and the Invasion of Madagascar. We had a couple of them.
We had a few of them, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I'd watch that.
I would, yeah. Adam Christian says the Battle of Ortona. That would be something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pigeonhole him with Peets. Yes, please.
Oh, yes. I'll
Kerry
happily be the
Thomas.
technical advisor on that.
Kerry Thomas says the Welsh Great Escape when German pals tunnelled out of an island farm POW camp near Bridgend. That sounds good.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
The Forgotten War podcast says Little Pete Rees and the Battle of Mandalay. Rees was a proper character. The men called him their Pocket Napoleon. We just need more Burma. We just need more Burma films.
Anything
don't we,
from
really?
Burma, yeah.
Yeah.
A Malaya film would be nice too.
Oh, Malaya film would be great. Then we have Tom, DJ COPO on X. He goes, 10th Submarine Flotilla out of Malta, Victoria Crosses, bombing, pig farming, drunken sailors. Although, to be honest, it would be better as a series a la Masters of the Air. That would be good.
Or Das Boot.
Yeah. Hauptmann HK goes, the Battle of Belgium in 1940 from the perspective of the Belgians.
Can we have some Battle of France, Battle of Belgium, Battle of the Low Countries representation, please? Let's go.
Yeah. Pete Hackett goes, that scrap at the end of Europe where the Americans and Wehrmacht defended that castle against the SS.
Oh, yeah.
I love the way he's written that. I love it.
Yeah. I know the one.
Every YouTube channel has done, every World War II YouTube channel has gone, the time the Germans and the Americans fought together. And it's always like, whoa!
Dum, dum, dum.
Oh, yes.
You know.
Yeah, Ian Mays goes the attack on Taranto instead of being the inspiration for Pearl Harbor. Shows what an effect the raid had on the whole of the Med.
That would be really good.
I like
That's
that.
a hell of an operation.
Roxy goes Coastal Command. Anything they did. Agreed.
Motorboats, let's go.
Yes. Richie W says Mad Jack Churchill cutting about with his broadsword and longbow. That'd be quite
Give us
something.
a British D-Day movie. Do it.
Yes, please. Yeah. And yeah, that rounds us out for this week. So Matt, what's yours?
Mine is I would like a pressure style, which I think is going to be a very cerebral kind of in a room discussion kind of based movie, but about the creation and invention of pykrete.
Concrete.
No, pykrete.
What's pykrete?
Sawdust in ice that they were going to make big landing aircraft carriers out of.
That's niche.
Yeah.
Oh, that's niche.
Pykrete.
And the line of someone saying, "Oh, that's just concrete," would be in the movie, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh no,
it would be.
That's just concrete. That is.
Yeah.
And then
they come about going, "It's just concrete."
Yes. Gary Oldman reprising his Churchill to go. This is a marvelous idea.
You better have millions on hand to get him out of not doing slow horses.
I think you could lure him in if it was made by Apple.
We need the pykrete, whatever the cost may be.
That's all he has to do.
It just really awkwardly edit scenes of Darkest Hour into your film, just really randomly.
Oh, he's on a tube car. What's he talking about?
Yes.
Pykrete. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mine is have you seen the Blackberry biopic?
I've heard tell of it. Is that the one with Taron Egerton?
No, it's the one with the guy out of
Taron
Always
Egerton's in
Sunny.
the one that's about Pac-Man, isn't he?
Tetris.
Tetris.
Yeah, I want a film called QL about the development of the Bedford QL, starring Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, but in the style of the Blackberry biopic. So it's mainly men.
For tomorrow, we design an engine block.
But like the trip, but for the Bedford QL, that'd be amazing. Something like that, you know, or another one. An idea.
The
was,
Covenanter, the development of the Covenanter in the style of that film about the Bradley.
That'd be good. Yeah, and at the end, it's just a
Covenanter. Like, the Australians have put machine gun mounts, and they're shaped like what?
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
And it's a guy with he's standing in front of it with like a magazine, so they have to like hold it over it to like when they get inspected, so they don't get caught. You know, like, we need to do that Bradley film. That's really good.
Oh yeah, that's a fun film.
I feel like the movie in the West has only really dealt with a few key moments. It hasn't really ever gone out of its way,
and it's guilty of doing it multiple times,
Ad
repetition
nauseam.
on the same sort of topics. They pick the big pivotal moments like Pearl Harbor or
it sells,
or something,
doesn't it?
Something like that.
About.
Yeah, a 3-part miniseries that follows a Bold Defiant squadron.
Oh, just call it Defiant.
Just call it Defiance. Bandits, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, make sure
they're we can shoot at.
Make sure they're above you or slightly behind you. We won't have a chance if not.
Yeah.
I love the bottle pool Defiant. I'll hear no bad words about it.
No,
and on
it's
that
great.
note,
it's great.
I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode. We loved April 9. Please go and watch it if you can. Do join us next week for more Fighting on Film, and we'll have another war movie review for your delectation. Do join us on the socials. Join the FOF Faithful on Facebook, the X account, the Patreon. Help keep the lights on at FOFHQ. And we'll catch you next week for more Fighting on Film. Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much for joining us. Bye.
Bye-bye.